Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to import an image plane. I'm going to import it in my top down. I purposely chose not the best images in hopes that maybe people would find their own images off of the internet, but I don't think anyone did. Let's see, downloads. Hands, okay. So I found these. Look how bad they are. They even have like watermarks all over them. Hello Sneeze says, man, I graduated when you did. You can't give me homework. Did you graduate when I did? Okay, so we have this image. So you notice one's the top of the head and one's the side. You can find images of your side. I even suggest that people just take a cell phone photo of their own hand. It's always good. Alex Cervantes says, you're never done with school. Ain't that the truth, my friend? Ain't that the truth? School, you know what? If you do it right, you're never done with school. If you just give up, then yeah, you're done with school. Okay, so I'm going to angle this so that that middle finger is straight on with my grid. I feel like it helps me out a little bit. And then I'm going to move my image down because like I mentioned before, I don't like modeling over my reference images. It just makes me really sad to do that. And so we're going to do a really low poly version of this hand first, and that may be the only one I do, just for speed. And then I do have a video from last year of going through both the low poly and the higher low poly version that you just saw me finish up in the previous video. But I'm going to keep this one really low poly. And so here is a cube. I'm just going to start with a cube, easy peasy. And this is going to be my middle finger. I'm going to start this out as the middle finger. One of the things I like to do is move my pivot point to the base of the finger, to the hinge. That way I can put it where I want it to, and I can scale it up and down a little bit easier. So I can even start that right now. So I'm going to scale this down to about the size of the index finger. And then if I hold down D, it'll allow me to move the pivot of this object around. And so if I hold down V and then hold down V, D and V, that's dog and Victor for those who can't understand me. And I can snap that right up to the base of that. Now when I scale it, I can actually scale it lengthwise, and that makes it easy for me to rotate and move it wherever I want as well, instead of having the pivot centered. So I basically know that I can scale it up from there, and it will match where I need it to go. Now I'm just going to go into vertice mode to start finessing this finger to make it all feminine. Now it's a cube, so the tip of it's always going to be kind of blocky, and the whole hand itself is going to be a little bit more blocky. If you don't want that, you need to start modeling with more geometry. And so I'm going to add a few edge loops, one at each knuckle. And that's about the most that I can do on this hand. There's not a lot more I can do, right? But now it doesn't quite look right, though. So what I like to do is kind of look at my hand and kind of look at what it does. Most people's fingers kind of like take a little curve up at the end. So I'm going to do that with these ones, kind of rotate them and turn them up just a little bit. And then the knuckles sometimes pop up just a smidge, and then they pop in a little bit. I don't know. I think that with this low poly, that's about as good as I'm going to get. We talked about this earlier. This is really low poly, but if you have anything that hinges, you need more than one edge loop. I mean, ideally, if this was a higher poly model, you'd have like a good 3 edge loops, and then you know that it's going to bend really well. The minimum you can get away with is 2, like 1.5 actually. So if I wanted to go really low poly and efficient, instead of having a loop go all the way around, I can save like 3 triangles by just having it kind of go halfway and then terminate into a try. And I'm going to show you why really quick here. So if I put this into vertex mode and move the pivot up to that knuckle, I can show you why. So this kind of simulates how it would bend if it were on a rig. But you can see if, oops, I need to highlight these ones too though. Let's see if this does what I want it to. You can see it bends and it has enough geometry that knuckle, it stretches. Oops, went a little too far. But it bends semi-okay. It's about as good as you can get. So I'll show you it without this extra edge loop in here, and delete that. And I'll show you what that looks like. If I hold down D, move the pivot over. Now if I rotate it, you can see it does not, it starts stretching this whole section of the finger. Does not look good at all. So it's kind of the minimum I can get away with is adding a little bit more geometry. So, but it's kind of one of those necessary things if you want a hinge on this finger so that it can actually animate. So I'm going to put those on there just because I will feel better about it, even though for this assignment, if I'm just trying to get the form and keep it low poly, it's not like a top priority, but might as well do it at this point. I'm going to remove the cap, the inside of that finger, because I'm just going to duplicate these 4 fingers around. So I'm just going to hit Control D, slide that index finger, or is this the index finger? Slide that middle finger over to the trigger finger, because that's where you shoot your guns with, is this finger. And then I am just going to shrink it down a little bit and call it done. We're going to call that done. Close enough. Then we'll slide that same one over, rotate it into position. And we're just going to do this fast. Call that one done as well. Control duplicate, Control D, slide the pinky over, slide it down into position. This is why I like to have that pivot right in that spot. And now the pinky finger is a lot smaller, so I just shrink the whole thing down universally. Boom and boom, that's close enough. And last but not least, just so we have it over here, Mr. Thumb will just chill over there till I'm ready to insert it. Okay, so now I have these 4 fingers, and you may say, that's great, let's model the rest of the hand. But to that I would say, hold up, slow down. We need to finesse this a little more while we have the opportunity. Because as much as they look okay, hands don't typically rest perfectly flat. They always have this little arc to them. And you can see this as I hold out my hand. See how the middle finger, they have this gradual little arc to them? And that just makes them look real. And so that's something I like to do is I like to leave the middle finger alone, but then I'll rotate the index finger, the trigger finger a little bit and move it slightly down. And I'll rotate the other fingers outside slightly and move them just a little bit down. And the same with the pinky, move it a little bit down. This just feels more realistic. You can see how those slight natural bends, just they do magic. Okay, so now we can get back to work. Okay, so I'm gonna select all these 4 fingers, go mesh, combine, merge them all together. And now we can start Frankensteining these together. We need some more skin. We're gonna sew these guys together with polygons. To do that, I'm just gonna use my old handy dandy append to polygon tool. So under mesh tools, append to polygon. We're gonna snap the pinky finger on the side and the next finger on the other side. And you can see I'm adding that little flap of skin that goes between your fingers. They're a little bit squampies right now. Before I went through a little adjustment before I did this one I'm going to do after because it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to repeat that process for each of those fingers. Now they're all connected. And if I look at my top view, I can probably fix all of these inside using the reference. So you can see these ones needed to be moved up here a little bit. This guy's not super happy, so I'll just move it down. Move this guy up. And that way they're not as jarringly squampus anymore. I think that works pretty good. And the trigger finger, I'll slide that up just a little bit. All right, so now they're feeling much better. You can see you sometimes have weird stuff. Like this pinky finger really needed to come down just a little bit more. Okay. Feeling groovy. Okay, so now I'm just gonna do the easy way out and extrude the edges on these fingers. all the way down to the wrist and just fix my mess after that. So I'm going to double click on this edge loop that goes around the fingers. You can see it highlights the whole thing. Now if I hold down shift, right click, and click on extrude edge right below there, it goes to my extrude edge tool, which is really cool, but it likes to extrude along the normals of the objects. And that does not look bueno to me. That does not look good. So I'm just going to hit W, which moves to my move tool, and I can universally grab them all and slide them all straight back, like yay. And go into my top down tool. I am going to scale this so it's flat, and then I can scale it back into my wrist size. Voila. And now things are coming together. So I feel like we have a plan now. One of the things I do not like, I like to keep my quads or my polygons a nice square shape as much as possible. Obviously on those knuckles where I added that edge loop for animation, I have 2 edge loops very close together. That's okay with me. Where I'm not okay is right here where you have kind of these little stripes coming along the hand. Those don't look efficient or pretty. So to fix that, I'm going to add an edge loop up here along the knuckles so I can collapse some of those edges down into one. And those are going to create some triangles, but I can use those triangles to kind of help accentuate where the knuckles would be. So whenever I have some weird geometry, I think what part of the body has a lump or a bulge or something that can utilize that, and then I work it into the system. So I'm going to hit my insert edge loop tool, and I'm just going to slide this edge loop kind of up to where the knuckles would be. This will also be useful to flesh out the pads of the hands underneath. And then I'm just going to select that edge right here and hold down shift and go to merge collapse edges, collapse edge, and just collapse that down. Once I've done that once, I can just select another edge and hit G, and it redoes the last command. So I hit G on each of those, and then I'm going to do it on the ends of the wrist too, where we have these big triangles, to convert those into one big, nice polygon right there that we'll cut in just a minute. But now it's looking a lot cleaner. I need to do that down on the other side, but you'll notice if I rotate to the bottom, I'm looking at my reference images that just hurts my feelings so bad. I don't want to look through it. So I'm going to select my hand, hold down shift, and hit I, and that isolates the object. The nice thing is we go along, we're going to do these models every day, or almost every day. Sometimes we're going to do texturing. But I'm going to repeat this stuff over and over and over again because just as Lofsny said, repetition builds mastery. So we're going to be repeating a lot. So I'm collapsing these edges just like we did above on the bottom of the hand. And we're going to collapse them back here as well. Beautiful. Look at that. It's coming along. It's coming along. And you see that's kind of maintained that shape, that arc I talked about with the fingers. The wrist is more round, so I could actually grab some of these vertices on this bottom wrist bit and kind of round this out so that it's more of a rounded shape. And then we'll fix it underneath the hand in just a minute. But that is starting to be something. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so if we look at these knuckle bits too, these triangles we made, we can even pull some of those up a little bit. So those would be the knuckles on the fingers, which that works. It's kind of fleshing out. It's starting to feel a little bit more like a hand now. And I like that. I do. I like it. These can be the pads of the hands underneath because you have the fatty kind of muscly section of the hand there. And so the same kind of thing, the under knuckles we could call them if you want to get weird. And we can pull those up a little bit. So those start to feel like the padding of the hand. We can always adjust those later, but it's looking pretty good. Okay, let's look. I'm gonna hit Shift I without anything selected so I can see my reference images and see how we're matching up. And I want to make a spot for my thumb to pop right in there. And so on your thumb, you notice your hand has a straight line going down. And then it's kind of like a triangle shape where the thumb comes out with the meat here. And you can see that right here in the reference image too. This nice little triangle shape, and we can recreate that pretty well. But what I need is an edge loop right here to match up where the joint of the thumb pops in. So using my insert edge loop tool, I'm going to add one right here. Pop it right in there. Grab in vertice mode and just slide it over to match about where the thumb joint would be. All right, and we'll just even out some of these vertices here. So now you see I have this nice spot to connect my thumb to. And since this is so low poly, this makes it easy. I just need to clip this face off right here. And this thumb that we cut off of a finger earlier is going to be the new thumb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it into place and match up the image as close as I can. And I think I don't need this edge loop. We'll add something on for it later. And you'll notice the thumb, a lot of people will model it straight up like that, like parallel to the hand, but those never naturally go that way. The thumb always comes down at almost a 45-degree angle and rotates out. So the thumbnail points out from the hand, not straight up. That would hurt if it pointed straight up. So I need to rotate this thumb out like that. And then looking at this, it needs to rotate down at almost a 45-degree angle. And we'll do our best to match that up. So something-ish like that. And notice it kind of follows that natural arc of the fingers as well. Looks pretty good. So we'll go back into this mode. And now we're going to try and Frankenstein this in. It should work okay if I delete. Let's just do this. If I delete this bit right here and go into vertice mode, you have these vertices that are only connected to two edges, so they don't have a third one to keep them tied down. I'm just going to delete that too. And now what I want to do is actually just connect these bits together. Okay, let's just do it. Let's just go. I'm just going to hold down V and middle mouse snap these vertices to these other vertices. I'm a little nervous. This is hand surgery here, but that looks pretty darn good. Okay, but these are not connected yet. You notice if I move the top of the hand, the thumb has not yet been properly Frankensteined onto this hand. So I'm going to hold it, select both of those, go to Mesh, Combine, boom, and then go into vertice mode, highlight the whole model, and merge the vertices. Okay. Low poly hand, my friend. Okay, so let's look at this thing. So now we need to get a full view. So it's looking okay from the top. Thumb could use a little bit of finesse. The hand on the bottom looks kind of okay. There are like some of the hand seems like it should pop out a little bit more. I feel like this one feels pretty good. I feel like there could be another edge loop added to this section if I really wanted to make it fill proper. Otherwise, this would probably be Meteor, and then this would have kind of a dip in between the sections. But I think I'm going to call that pretty good for a low poly hand that we modeled in 20 minutes. Alex Cervantes says, low poly hand. It's true. It is a low poly hand. And it is only 232 triangles. So pretty low. I'm going to hit shift and I'm going to, just because there is some more wrist in the image, I'm going to extrude the wrist out. This is where it would connect to an arm. You could delete it. You could do whatever you want at this point. Let's even it out. And we can make that round again. Make the wrist round again. Yep, and a lot of times the wrist actually bulges up right here. It's not a straight plane either. So if I want to get nitpicky, I'd actually like to push that up a little bit. And then I could push the rest of the hand up slightly. It's all about turning it around, looking at all the angles, and tweaking these edges. Okay, so let's see how it looks. Very low poly. So we'll even, turn off my loops, and we'll smooth it out. Mesh to place, soften edge. There we go. All right, my friends, that is how to model a low poly hand. I will edit this up and put it on the videos, the YouTubes. In the meantime, you can watch the VOD on Twitch.